It doesn't get any less. It just feels better to think that folks appreciate what you're doing. Is the most proud feeling in the whole world, and I want to thank the fans for sticking with me.
She was once the golden voice of country music, a woman whose stage presence dazzled, whose voice soared with soul, and whose steel guitar could make hearts tremble. From Sleeping Single in a Double Bed to I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool, Barbara Mandrell didn't just perform. She gave generations a soundtrack to feel, to cry, to remember. But now, decades later, where is Barbara Mandrell? What became of the star who once ruled country music? Before we begin, how would you rate Barbara Mandrell as a country legend from 0 to 10? Share your thoughts below, like this video, and subscribe to Celebsir, where memories of true legends never fade. Before she became the shining jewel of country music, Barbara Mandrell was just a little girl in Houston, Texas, born on Christmas Day, 1948, into a home where music wasn't just a sound, it was a way of life. Her father, Herbie Mandrell, a skilled guitarist and music entrepreneur, and her mother, Mary Ellen, a devoted piano teacher, surrounded Barbara with melodies before she could even speak them. In this tight-knit family, dreams were crafted with discipline, and talent was nurtured with relentless devotion. From the moment she could walk, Barbara was drawn not to dolls, but to instruments. Her childhood playground was her father's music store, where steel guitars gleamed and strings sang. While her peers chased after playtime fun, Barbara chased perfection, long practice hours that left her tiny fingers raw and vocal sessions that demanded more than breath. Yet, she never complained. Even as a child, she understood that her gift was something sacred, meant to be shared. At just 11 years old, Barbara was dubbed the Princess of Steel, a title earned through dazzling skill on the steel guitar that defied her age. That same year, her father, recognizing a spark that could no longer be contained, arranged for her to perform alongside country legends. She toured with icons like Patsy Cline and Johnny Cash, captivating audiences not just with technical brilliance but with a poise and presence far beyond her years. Yet behind the curtain, life wasn't glamorous. It was lonely hotel rooms, exhausting rehearsals, and the quiet ache of a childhood lost to the spotlight. As friends enjoyed dances and carefree days, Barbara was learning to handle critics, memorize complex arrangements, and live up to a legacy she hadn't chosen, but had embraced. That tension deepened when the Mandrell family band was born. Her father led the way, her mother played piano, and her sisters Louise and Erlene joined in. Touring relentlessly, they became a sensation. But for Barbara, the applause often brought questions. Is this my dream or my destiny? Still, she carried on, not just for her family, but because music, in its purest form, still lit something within her. At 19, she found a rare kind of love in Ken Dudney, a Navy pilot turned drummer who saw the woman behind the star. She married him, and for a moment considered stepping away from music. But the pull of the stage, the roar of the Grand Ole Opry, was too strong. Standing under those lights, she felt it again, the rush, the purpose, the calling. In 1969, Barbara signed with Columbia Records, and her debut single, a bold, soulful cover of I've Been Loving You Too Long, made both critics and fans take notice. Her style was daring, blending country roots with R&B soul, a choice that earned both admiration and criticism. But Barbara didn't fold, she leaned in. Her debut album, Treat Him Right, 1971, was more than a collection of songs. It was a declaration of independence, of artistry, of womanhood. Tracks like Playing Around with Love and Show Me carried stories, strength, and truth. Her voice wasn't just heard, it was felt. Barbara's rise wasn't built on overnight success, it was forged note by note, show by show, across decades of hard-won respect. She carved out a path where none existed, not just for herself, but for every woman who dared to dream of owning the stage in a man's world. Every time Barbara stepped on stage, she didn't just perform. She testified to resilience, to sacrifice, to the power of a little girl, a steel guitar, and a dream that never let go. As the 1970s unfolded, Barbara Mandrell's name was no longer whispered in music circles. It was shouted from coast to coast. In 1975, she took a bold leap by signing with ABC/Dot Records, a move that pushed her music and her legacy to daring new heights. Partnering with visionary producer Tom Collins, Barbara unleashed a string of hits that transformed her from rising star to reigning queen of modern country. Her single Standing Room Only lit up the charts and paved the way for a revolutionary sound, blending country, soul, and R&B. It wasn't just catchy. It was fearless. Songs like Married But Not to Each Other and Woman to Woman gave voice to stories rarely heard in country music, tales of complex love, strength in heartbreak, and the quiet power of the female perspective. Her lyrics didn't just entertain, they empowered. Beyond the radio, Barbara redefined live concerts with dazzling theatricality, elaborate stage designs, synchronized dancers, high-energy lighting, and costume changes mid-show added drama and flair. She didn't just sing, she performed, gliding between saxophone, banjo, bass, and her signature steel guitar with ease. In an era when few female artists took risks, Barbara made bold experimentation look effortless. Behind the scenes, Barbara's work ethic was legendary. Rehearsals stretched into the early hours. She meticulously crafted every detail, from vocal phrasing to the position of each stage light. She demanded excellence from herself and everyone around her, and did it all with grace, never letting pressure dull her sparkle. In 1978, her hit, Sleeping Single in a Double Bed, soared to #1, cementing her place among country's elite. Its themes of loneliness and quiet resilience struck a universal chord. 1 year later, If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right, redefined her image. Here was a woman unafraid to confront the gray areas of love, who embraced emotional complexity and invited her audience to do the same. Through the late 70s and early 80s, she delivered hit after hit, Crackers, Years, and the now iconic I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool. Each track was more than a song, it was a statement, a rallying cry for authenticity in an increasingly polished world. Her ability to blend genres, break molds, and speak directly to the human experience earned her widespread respect from critics and peers alike. In 1980 and 1981, Barbara made history, becoming the first woman to win the Country Music Association's Entertainer of the Year award 2 years in a row, a feat later matched only by artists like Taylor Swift. In those moments, Barbara stood not just as a star, but as a trailblazer. Despite her fame, Barbara remained grounded. She never lost touch with her roots, always expressing gratitude for her fans and faith. Between tours, she returned to Nashville to rest and reconnect with her husband Ken and their growing family. It was that balance, between dazzling showmanship and genuine humanity, that made her unforgettable. By the early 1980s, Barbara Mandrell had become more than a performer. She was a force. A woman who turned pressure into power, doubt into drive, and talent into timeless legacy. Her music resonated across generations, genres, and borders. But even as her star blazed at its brightest, fate had another chapter in store, one marked by unimaginable tragedy and unbreakable strength. In 1984, while driving home through the familiar roads of Nashville with her 2 young children, a teenage driver veered across the center line and crashed head-on into her car. The impact was devastating. The young man, Mark White, died at the scene. Barbara and her children survived, but not without lasting scars. Barbara suffered a broken femur, a shattered ankle, and most critically, a traumatic brain injury. The woman who once commanded the stage with flawless timing and radiant presence suddenly struggled to recall names, places, even parts of her own identity. I felt like a part of me had vanished, she later said. What followed wasn't just physical rehabilitation, it was an emotional descent into darkness, uncertainty, and isolation. Adding to the pain was public misunderstanding. To access medical coverage, Barbara was legally required to file a lawsuit against the deceased driver's estate, a standard insurance procedure. But to the public, it looked cruel. The backlash was swift. Headlines twisted the truth. Fans who once adored her questioned her integrity. Yet Barbara Mandrell was never one to be broken. Just 8 months after the crash, still healing, still aching, she stepped onto the stage once more. It wasn't a sold-out arena. It was a charity concert with her friend Dolly Parton. Her hands trembled on the mic. Her voice wavered. But in that moment, Barbara showed the world what real courage looks like. It wasn't the return of a superstar. It was the rebirth of a fighter. From that point forward, Barbara turned pain into purpose. She became an outspoken advocate for seatbelt safety, lending her voice and her story to the national cause. Barbara Mandrell never sugar-coated her experiences. After a devastating car accident, she worked closely with the Highway Traffic Safety Administration, using every scar, every memory lapse, and every moment of despair to help others understand just how fragile and precious life can be. Still, the road back was anything but smooth. The effects of her brain trauma lingered. There were days when memories blurred and confidence faltered. But she found strength in the quiet corners of her life. In prayer, in the steadfast love of her husband Ken Dudney, and in the laughter of her children. These were the lifelines that held her steady. As the 1980s gave way to a new musical era and Barbara's place in the charts began to fade, her impact did not. Her performances became less about glitter and more about grace. She brought to the stage not just melodies, but meaning. Every lyric, every note carried the weight of a woman who had faced her worst fears and stood tall. In 1997, at the height of her emotional maturity and artistic wisdom, Barbara made the stunning choice to retire at age 49. There was no scandal, no faded spotlight, only love. A mother choosing to be present for her youngest son, Nathaniel, during the pivotal years of adolescence. She even sold her instruments, signaling not a pause, but a true farewell. Her final performance, fittingly titled The Last Dance, was a masterclass in emotional storytelling. The stage shimmered. Fans wept. Artists across the industry paid tribute. Barbara stood there one last time, not as a victim, not even as a legend, but as a woman wholly at peace with her choices. Though she stepped away from the stage, Barbara never let go of music. She sang in church, comforted friends and fans with hymns and stories. In 2009, she was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, a moment that should have been pure triumph but was bittersweet. Just 2 months earlier, her beloved father, Herbie, had passed. Still, she stood on that stage and proudly said, "The name Mandrell is the legacy my father left me." Today, Barbara Mandrell lives a life of quiet joy on her ranch near Nashville. She finds beauty in simplicity, tending her garden, watching sunsets with Ken, and holding close the memories that shaped her journey. She has traded encores for evenings of peace, and for Barbara, that trade was worth everything. Yet, her story continues. Artists like Carrie Underwood, Faith Hill, and Shania Twain still speak her name with reverence. They call her a trailblazer, a warrior, a woman who redefined what it meant to be powerful and feminine in music. Barbara Mandrell didn't just overcome tragedy, she turned it into testimony. She proved that from the deepest wounds can come the most radiant light. In doing so, she gifted us not only unforgettable music but a legacy of resilience, purpose, and profound human strength. When she hosted the show Legacy that year with the wonderful M. Davis, she brought that message full circle. Now at 76, Barbara leads a life far removed from the bright lights and roaring applause that once defined her world. But if you think her star has dimmed, think again. In the stillness of her Tennessee ranch, surrounded by rolling hills and cherished family memories, Barbara lives in a kind of peace that only a life fully lived can offer. She may no longer grace the stage with saxophones and steel guitars, but the echoes of her voice and the strength of her spirit still ripple through the hearts of generations. Barbara's impact on country music isn't just etched into the charts, it's woven into the very soul of the genre. Her boundary-breaking blend of traditional country, soul, and R&B wasn't just bold, it was revolutionary. In a time when the genre was defined almost entirely by male voices, Barbara stood tall with grace, grit, and undeniable talent. Her presence shifted the landscape, and artists who followed, from Faith Hill to Carrie Underwood, walked confidently through doors she helped open. Carrie once said, "Barbara Mandrell didn't just perform. She taught us how to command a stage and still keep our hearts whole." That sentiment has echoed across the industry. Legends and newcomers alike recognize the trail Barbara blazed. Her induction into the Hall of Fame in 2009 was not just a celebration, it was a coronation. A moment of recognition that she had shaped not just music but minds, hearts, and possibilities. And it wasn't only the music that left an impression. Barbara's personal story, her unwavering faith, her family-first values, her resilience in the face of tragedy, resonated with fans who saw in her not just a performer, but a kindred spirit. She turned every hardship into testimony, every tear into wisdom. Her transparency about the aftermath of her car accident, the emotional toll of fame, and her desire for a simpler life spoke volumes in a world hungry for authenticity. Her home, Fontanelle Mansion, once a living space and now a tourist attraction, stands as a tribute to that legacy. Visitors walk the same halls where Barbara lived and loved, surrounded by artifacts from a life of purpose. The mansion is more than a memory. It's a living museum of resilience, music, and family. In retirement, Barbara continues to lead by quiet example. She supports charitable organizations, advocates for road safety, and mentors young artists when called upon. She's not chasing applause, she's choosing peace. And in that choice lies a different kind of power, the power of a woman who knows her worth, has lived her purpose, and offers the world a model of graceful aging. In 2022, when Barbara made a rare public appearance at the Grand Ole Opry to celebrate 50 years of membership, she didn't need to sing a note. Her presence alone moved the audience to tears. As young artists performed her classics, Barbara sat beaming in the front row, proud, grateful, and utterly unforgettable. Her eyes sparkled not with ambition, but with the deep, abiding joy of someone who has loved deeply, lived fully, and inspired endlessly. Her name, to this day, is spoken with reverence, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. Through triumph and tragedy, through stages and silences, Barbara Mandrell has remained a symbol of strength and grace. Her music lives on, but more importantly, so does her message, that even when the stage goes dark, the legacy of love, courage, and authenticity continues to shine. And as fans listen to I Was Country when country wasn't cool or sleeping single in a double bed, they don't just hear a voice. They remember a moment, a feeling, a woman who gave her all to every note. Barbara Mandrell may no longer take the stage, but she will forever hold one in the hearts of those she moved. It was just the greatest. Some stars fade quietly when they step out of the spotlight, but not Barbara Mandrell. Her light endures. It shimmers in the harmonies she left behind, in the memories etched into the hearts of those who grew up with her music, and in the strength she showed in every chapter of her life. From the steel guitar prodigy to the powerhouse entertainer, from the devoted mother to the voice of resilience, Barbara's journey has never been about chasing fame. It's been about staying true to who she is. And in doing so, she became more than a legend. She became a lighthouse. If her story brought back a memory, warmed your heart, or left you reflecting, don't let it end here. Leave a comment and share what Barbara means to you. Like this video if her songs once played in the background of your life, and subscribe to Celebs Rewind for more timeless journeys, because honoring icons like Barbara Mandrell is how we keep their stories alive for the next generation.